My name is John Barley from Rite New Zealand Limited, and we have with us today Mr. Willem Jonker. Willem owns a company called IT Cloud Solutions, and I've known Willem now for at least 10 years, getting on 9 to 10 years. And I got to know Willem through my previous business of Barley Insurances, because Willem wanted to insure his ATV, which is a wonderful vehicle, and we're going to be discussing that and also looking at it as well, including that particular subject within the subject matter of the podcast. So just to give you some background on Willem, after a long discussion with him the other day when he took me out in his ATV and showed me the performance of this wonderful machine, which we'll show you later. Willem is Dutch, and he had a desire to come to New Zealand at the tender young age of 15. And he wanted to come to New Zealand because of everything that he'd heard about New Zealand. So then he went to, in his career, he started off in the mining industry in South Africa, and looking at engineering and all the various aspects of that. And that sort of morphed into this world of IT. Time moves along, and he came to New Zealand with his wife with a suitcase and stayed with people, and basically started up his whole life and had his children. And he now lives in a beautiful part of South Auckland, out in the countryside, where he can use his vehicle, and he's got a lot of land. He's a 4x4 nut. Is that the right word, Willem? I don't think that's appropriate.
Yeah, enthusiast.
Enthusiast, yes. That's better. And so it was through that enthusiasm that he had a desire to recreate this ATV. But Willem's expertise and professionalism is in the world of IT. And IT as a resource within business is very complicated, but it doesn't have to be. But there are a number of risks that relate to business and the total well-being of the business. So we're going to blend in the story of his ATV and a story that Willem is going to tell us about human failure and computer failure all in one with a particular business. So I hope you enjoy the podcast. And so I'm now going to say hello to Willem. Willem.
Hello, John. Yes. Okay, there's actually quite a nice analogy that we can sort of relate the four-wheel driving in the vehicles that I have with the IT that I do. You know, it's the same as when you go four-wheel driving. To me, you know, it's not about the four-wheel drive. You know, you don't buy a Range Rover because you just like it, because it's not really suitable for the sort of work you're doing.
Yeah.
So you really have to have a look and see, well, what am I trying to achieve? What do I want to do? And what's the best vehicle to go and do that with, right? Same in IT, you know. I'm not really an IT techie guy, right? I don't employ or use technology just because of the sake of technology. It has to be applicable. It has to be applicable to the business. It has to be applicable to the situation. Same as four-wheel driving, right? And that's probably my biggest thing, is that it has to work for the company, for the business you're doing it for. And every business is different. You know, there's no one shoe fits all type thing. Same with four-wheel driving.
Yep.
And that's really where I'm coming from.
Yep. And the four-wheel drive is a unique vehicle, isn't it? And you've got a unique value to give to business owners. You'll notice that the words unique vehicle and unique value have the same, it's an acronym, UV light.
Yeah.
So you're bringing light to their business through your knowledge and experience. How about that, huh? So
yeah.
The other thing is with your background in developing this wonderful ATV machine, and I will put the photograph up later on about it, but with your ATV, you actually came to me, about 5-6 years ago, and you said, John, I understand you insure ATVs, but I want to have comprehensive cover. And I said, well, you can't have comprehensive cover because the ATV is a new machine and the insurance companies don't know it. And you said, well, how can I get it comprehensively insured? And I said, well, you got to get it road registered. So that was a task that you went to town on, and, and you created this wonderful machine from the resources that you had. And it's exactly the same with how you can actually use the existing resources within a business to make the business safer in regards to its IT technology. So let's talk about your ATV machine. What did you actually do to it to make it road legal, and what is the benefit for you with this machine?
So one of the things, of course, it's unique. I mean, that's what I like about it, and it's uniquely suited for what I wanted to do. So things, of course, are not always that straightforward. That, you know, what I think should be used on the road and you know, is the ideal vehicle. Other people still scratching their head and say, well, you know, nobody's ever used that vehicle for that purpose. So, you know, what are you doing? So the technical side of changing my vehicle to make it road legal and you know, get it registered on the road wasn't that great. It was more to try to get people's head around it and to go through all the rule books to actually figure out how to do it, and then convince people that yes, it is actually possible. And I know you have never done it before, but you know, there's no reason you shouldn't. And so that was probably the biggest battle, was to get around that mental block, if you like, for people to say, well, yeah, but no, of course you can't do that. And I say, well, yeah, why can't you?
Yeah. And so you've actually got a photograph of your ATV. You've actually taken it on a trip and you took your ATV across country, and there's one or two wonderful shots of you taking your vehicle down this very narrow path. It's almost like a razor edge, and there's a drop on either side of it, and it's just not appropriate for any other vehicle. But you've managed to create this vehicle. You have prepared this vehicle for that terrain to do it safely. So in reality, coming back to what you do for your business and for your clients' businesses, you actually assist them to prepare their business for and their computer systems for their daily risks of operating that IT equipment. So can you just go through, and I think maybe the best way of explaining how we have come to this is going through that story that you gave to me earlier about how your client actually suffered from a failure, a human failure, and also a mechanical failure or material failure. So can we just go through that story and how it all happened and what the final victory was?
Yeah, so for a business with IT, it's similar to a vehicle again. You know, when I go into my vehicle, I put a 5-point harness on, I put a helmet on, I've got a roll cage, I've got all these things, you know, that prepare you for if something goes wrong, at least, you know, you're protected and you do the best possible. It's not to say nothing will go wrong, but, you know, you do your best to make sure if it does that, you know, you're not going to get hurt too badly. Same in a business, you know, human error happens, failures happen. So you have to prepare for that. You have to say, okay, if that happens, how am I going to recover from that? How am I going to protect myself? How am I going to, you know, deal with a situation? And you have to think about those things before they happen, because if you wait until they happen, then it's too late. You know, you can't, you know, same as an accident, you can't have an accident. They say, oh, yes, it should have had an airbag. A bit too late then. So what happened to this particular customer is that one of the workers clicked on an email, and that was an illegitimate email that had a link to a virus in it. So they clicked on it. Next minute, the whole server is being encrypted, and all the programs, everything they tried to get into, of course, they failed because now these files are not accessible anymore. So short of paying a whole lot of money and maybe getting your information back, we decided to implement a disaster recovery procedure. So with this particular customer, that meant killing the server, replacing the server, starting up a copy of the server that was maybe 1 or 2 months old, and then using online backup to restore all the data. So in this case, that took maybe half a day to achieve all that.
Okay.
Fortunately, their system was split, so they had some services that were on site that were affected, but they still had their email that was in the cloud. So we could, they could carry on using their email.
Yeah, I just thought I'd also take the opportunity of dropping in some interesting statistics which I've obtained from an insurance company called Delta Insurance, which basically specializes in the world of cybercrime insurance. And they came up with some very, very interesting statistics, because what we're talking about sounds great from the business owner's mind, but he then says, well, wait a second, what's the impact on me financially if it does go wrong, right? But here's some interesting statistics that comes out of it. And basically, the average value of ransom brought against a company in New Zealand in the last 6 to 9 months is $173,000.
Yeah.
Right? Now, that's a 33% increase in the previous year.
And that maybe doesn't even include the damage that it does in lost productivity and lost, all that.
No, and that's a really important point, because it's all about, and that's what you've mentioned, and you're going to mention in your story, because it's about the disruption and the interference to the business and the continual flow of their business. And the other important thing is that 99% of businesses are not prepared for hacking. And yet there is this policy available which provides some level of cover, but that's not been accepted either. But it's growing, but just not as fast as it should. But 99% of businesses aren't prepared. And yet there's a average ransom of $173,000 per claim.
So now you understand why New Zealand is a massive target for those hackers.
Yeah, and the other interesting point is that 92% of our New Zealand economy is based on the SME industry. But it's those SME industries of 1 to 5 people that are the hot targets for hackers overseas, and also here in New Zealand. So let's carry on with your story. And I want to talk about, you talk about there are no guarantees in life. You can't guarantee that somebody isn't going to make a mistake. But what we can do, and as proven by your ATV machine, we can prepare ourselves in the event that we are hacked, and also prepare ourselves so that we are not hacked. And that's I think it's and I just want to discuss that with you, because I think it's that the necessity of that preparation, which seems to be missing from many businesses within New Zealand.
Yeah, I mean, the first thing you have to understand, people need to, one, know about the danger, because if they don't know about it, they can't prepare for it. So there's a lot of ignorance out there.
Yeah.
A lot of small business owners, they don't want to know about IT because they don't understand IT. IT is expensive. Whatever money they spend on it, it doesn't automatically come back. If you spend money on a car, then it's in your driveway. You can see it. I mean, you can, appreciate the value. You spend money on online backup, disaster recovery, firewalls, all that sort of money. Nobody sees that, It's very difficult for a lot of people to see the value in spending money in that until it's too late.
Yeah. Yeah. And then, of course, as you mentioned earlier, you've also got the consequential damage, which flows on because they didn't do the preparation and they weren't prepared for being hacked.
Yeah.
So, what sort of things do you think a business should do or consider and put in place so that they are not, so they can have better preparation? What would be some of the solutions that you would give?
I mean, the first thing, they have to look at their business model. They have to understand where IT sits in their business. How important is it to their business? Can they do without it? If they lose email, how does it affect their business? If they lose their server or their documents, how will that affect the business? And then, you work from there. You say, okay, well, I don't care about email because, that's only just for jokes and other stuff. So, not important. But, my payroll, that's the most important thing. So then you start thinking, okay, how can we protect that? Can we put it in the cloud? Can we, protect it another way? And that's really, you have to talk to a professional that can analyze your systems and how vulnerable they are to the outside and how vulnerable they are to the business if you lost those systems. And you can do a couple of basic things is, put in good firewall to start off with, because, ultimately that's where most of your threats come from. A good email system, which picks out all the junk email, a good antivirus malware system, and then, make sure that your computers are up to date with all the latest security updates from Microsoft. And, then there's a whole range of other stuff that you can do, like training your staff, have online backup, disaster recovery solutions, that sort of stuff.
Yeah. And in your story, I heard you talking about the fact that all the processes within their business failed. And it was
not all the processes. The email process was still working because it was online, but all the other business processes, which work around the server, which was in this case was a terminal server, I mean, they stopped. So that was like,
in my mind, I kind of think about what would be the processes that are in the server that are not part of your email system. And I immediately thought about, well, you got your cash system, you've got your supply system, you've got your employment system,
manufacturing system, your distribution system, all, with, depending on your company, this particular company, they had to have a schedule that now suddenly nobody knew the schedule, who was supposed to go where to do what.
So how long was the business down for?
So it was just over half a day.
Okay. So did they actually equate how much money they'd actually lost from this downtime?
No, not to me. No.
Do you think they were actually aware of how much money they were losing?
I'm not sure. Yeah, I think it's difficult to say from my point of view. Like I said, I only sort of deal with the computer side of things, but
because one of the things that I'm really interested in about is helping people overcome their stress and the anxiety and the pressure that they're under when they are overwhelmed, through an event such as this, because they've already got a lot of pressure on them on a day-to-day basis. And then when the system collapses as well.
I think the most important thing is to have a plan, because if you've got a plan, you're not overwhelmed because you planned for this, right? Yeah. So what you do, you put a plan in place, and you know exactly where you're going, and you know that, hey, you can tell your customers and your, 3 o'clock or 4 o'clock, I'm up and running again. Not by, oh my God, what are we going to do now? It could be hours, could be days, could be weeks. That's a stressful situation, because you don't know what you're doing. You haven't got a plan. You have to formulate a plan, and you're already on the back foot. That's when you go into a nightmare situation. Yeah. If you plan for it, then it's just part of business. Hey, things happen.
Yeah.
A car can break down. Something else can happen. You plan for it. You deal with it. The time frames, and you just deal with it.
And that's part of the preparation, isn't it? Because
exactly.
Because going back to your ATV, there's actually a picture or part of the film where you come to this hillslide, and you've actually got to dig your track to get your vehicle around it. So being prepared is actually having the equipment in your vehicle ready to do whatever's necessary to clear the path for to move forward. And that's exactly the same with your 4x4s, because you guys love to use towing ropes and winches to get yourself out of tricky situations. If you didn't have that already prepared and working, you would be stuck there forever, which just increases the level of frustration, because all your mates are roaring on ahead of you and leaving you behind.
But it's not only just the frustration. It's when you're in situations and you're not prepared, you make mistakes. Because you're under pressure. You're under maybe a time constraint. You don't think straight, and you have to make things up on the fly, and that's when things go wrong.
Yeah.
If you're prepared and you've got all the equipment, you know what to do. A little hiccup is just a little hiccup. If you don't have the equipment and you're not prepared, a little hiccup can turn into a disaster.
Yeah. And it's kind of, I was also thinking whilst you're saying that, that there's another interesting statistic, and it comes down to the subject of being prepared. Apparently, I can't remember whether it was a male and a female thing, but we spend 24% of our productive time looking for things. So when you come to a breakdown in your IT system as a resource, you're going to actually be spending more than 24% of your time looking for things, and having to try and recover what you think you've lost. Does that make sense?
Yeah, that makes sense. And I mean, you can even take it a step further. I mean, a lot of people's computers, they run so slow because they haven't been maintained, they haven't been upgraded with the latest technology, that there's an enormous waste of people's time just waiting for the computer to do what it should be doing in a split second, but it's taking like 10 or 20 seconds, it doesn't maybe sound like a long time, but if you add it up over a day, over a week, over a month, over a year, you're losing hours and hours and hours of productive time.
Yeah.
And with that comes the frustration and the other, it just doesn't make sense, for relatively little amount of money, you can have a system that's efficient and that, gives the best opportunity to employees to do their work.
What were the other things that came out of your story of this particular client that that was foremost in your mind about how the business was going to survive? Were there some real critical points in there for the business survival?
Not in this case. I mean, it's a solid business, and they've got solid procedures in place. Of course, it was inconvenient, and of course, for any business, you always have to worry about loss of reputation. If you get hacked or you've been compromised, there's that fear. I mean, from my point of view, of course, the biggest disappointment was that we hadn't prepared them enough not to fall into the trap in the first place. And that's where, I could have done maybe more, employee training, not, to try and recognize what to click on, what not to click on, and how to deal with, certain emails. But, you can't win them all.
How easy is it to train people to do the right thing and not click on the wrong things?
I mean, that's extremely difficult. And because in any business, you have a range of IT skills, you have a range of different level of users. And, it's hard to get this message across to everybody. You might get it across to 98% of all the people. There's always going to be one that, they're just going to click on everything they see and look at all the jokes and all the bits and pieces that come into the email. So it's extremely
like Facebook and LinkedIn and stuff like that.
Yeah. So it's extremely difficult. Yeah.
Yeah. So in your experience of dealing with many businesses and their IT system, how important is the leader's values on the systems and the disaster recovery plans that they put in place? So
just explain again. What do you?
Okay. One of my pet subjects is values within leadership. Okay, and business leaders' values will dictate the culture that is required within the business to protect and prevent loss to the business and also to the resources. So when you're talking to a business owner about the implementation of a disaster recovery plan or security of their IT or the implementation of new IT systems, have you recognized if the difference between a business owner that says, look, everything that you've said, Willem, I want because I value what I have, compared to those business owners that sort of, how can one say, move around a lot and aren't particularly comfortable with any particular decision?
I mean, any customer that I have that would be forward thinking enough to appreciate something like that most likely already has something like that in place. So 99% of all my customers I have to convince to put those systems in place because they don't understand the value of IT. They don't understand what it can do to their business. I think IT is probably one of the hardest parts of a business to understand. The small business owners, they're normally very good at what they do. They have accounts people. IT is, probably neglected time in most small businesses.
But it's the most valuable resource.
Well, and it's becoming more and more valuable because as you move on, more and more of their systems are on the computer, and more and more of their business processes are on the computer. So they become totally reliant on the computer, which most of them hate. Those are mainly people that want to work with their hands, and they're not interested in technology in that way. They're uncomfortable.
So tell me, just go through this client. They had a problem. What was the victory? What was the major victory for this client?
I mean, the victory, I think, was that the systems that we put in place and the worked. Like everything worked the way it should have worked, and they weren't totally at a loss at what to do. Everybody knew how to carry on. Everybody knew what had to happen, and we managed to restore their system in the time frame that we spoke about in the beginning, when I said, what sort of disaster recovery system would you want? What will your business, do you want? Split second disaster recovery, an hour, a day, a week, So that's all different cost pictures and different systems that you employ to achieve that. And they said, no, a day is fine. We can cope with a day being offline. So we achieved that.
Was it challenging for the business owner when you asked the business owner those questions in regards to the disaster recovery plan?
So in this case, I wasn't talking to the business owner directly because this is slightly larger business. So they have different people that,
Yeah.
So I was talking to one of the managers that was dealing with the IT part, and then they have to go back. So it's very the right people. If you've got a very small business, it's easy because the business owner is the guy that's in charge of finances, that's in charge of of everything. So he can make a decision, yes or no. But as the business gets slightly bigger, then you get more cogs in the wheel, and then it all becomes.
But the
finance and,
the benefit of having the bigger organization, though, is that you were actually able to talk to a manager who had knowledge of the IT systems anyway.
So no, he didn't. No, he didn't have no knowledge of the IT system. He was just in charge of it, but had no knowledge of it.
Okay. All right,
and that's because they're not dedicated, IT managers. Because I mean, the business is not that big enough. It's just one of the managers who get lumped with the IT portfolio and just pull out their hair.
Okay, but he had a pretty good understanding of what the consequences would be.
Oh, I told him in no uncertain terms. So I left it in his court to convince the owner to spend the money to put this in, and and that worked.
So do you actually have, Willem, a set of questions that a business owner could go through to actually start to understand the exposures that they have, to say, actually, I've got a pretty big gap in here and I really need to have this disaster recovery plan so I don't have the disruption, I don't have the interference in the welfare and the well-being of my business going forward. Do you have anything like that?
Not a fixed set, because I mean every business is different, but
sure.
Normally suggest any small business is unplug your server or unplug your internet and what happens to the business.
Do what, sorry?
unplug your server, unplug your internet, and see how long your business carries on running. So most businesses will realize that within 5 minutes, all the work stops and everybody gets off their desk and starts asking what's happened, what are we going to do?
Yeah, that is so true. That's so true. And it's been really cool talking to you, Willem, and thank you for your time. And I noticed that you're wearing your a t-shirt there with the Land Rover on it. So
yeah.
So and that's going to be your next project, I understand.
Yes. My daughter and I, we bought a 1959 Land Rover that we're going to restore. So looking forward to that.
And you're preparing yourself to do to do the work on that.
Of course. It's all going to be worth it.
Yeah, I'm sure it will. Well, should people want to get hold of you, they get hold of IT Cloud Solutions, Mr. Willem Jonker. And would you like to give them your phone number and your email address?
Yeah, so phone number is 09-262-3878. And the email address is Willem, so WILLEM, at itcloudsolutions.co.nz.
And when they ring you to talk to you about their system, what's the process, Willem? How do they get to engage with you and bring you on board as their IT guru?
Well, I would go and visit them, have a look at the system, ask them why they approach me, do they have an incumbent, or, what is the problem, what they're trying to achieve. And sometimes all I do is just do an audit and say, well, we already have somebody, we're not 100% sure if they're doing the right thing, if we covered for this, and this. I just, go to them, ask them a couple of questions, say, you're all good to go, or, you should change a couple of things here or there. And sometimes it's like, well, we'd be more comfortable, that you take care of it for us.
Are you prepared to summarize what your unique value is to businesses?
I think as far as IT is concerned, I'm more interested in the business side of the IT solution rather than the IT solution. So it has to work for the business. It has to be a solution that works for the business. And I think that's probably my strongest point. I'm looking at it from a business owner's point of view, not from an IT techie point of view.
And that's proven by the fact that you built this wonderful ATV machine.
Yeah, you have to look at things the right way.
Yeah.
Just apply technology for the sake of technology.
Yeah, look at the outcome that you want. And then everything else falls into place. So we'll leave it there, but thank you very much, Willem. And
thank you, John.
We'll see you probably soon.
Yeah, we'll have to catch up over coffee.
Yay, I'm into that. Thanks very much.
Okay.
See ya.
Okay, thanks, John. See you, bye.
Hello, my name is John Barley, and I wish to say thank you for listening to the last podcast on Are We on the Right Track to Understand the Importance of Preparation of the Plan. The podcast is one of a series. The first was about security and protection with the data center, and the guest was Robert Elcombe. The title was Are We on the Right Track for Understanding Data Security? The second is about the benefits of having secure data, the ability to understand the story of the business and patterns of operation, to be able to have potential of creating new opportunities, the necessity to prepare for the planning systems and the opportunities of the business. This was under the podcast, Are We on the Right Track, to understand how IT can provide opportunities for growth. The guest was Daniel Bowen from Layer 3 New Zealand Limited. To create this series has been due to the willingness of my guests to partake in answering my questions. The series supplies solutions and insight into the risks of cybercrime, loss of data, loss of opportunities, permitting you to recognize the importance of understanding the daily information before you, so that you do not become overwhelmed. And this prevents that feeling of stress and anxiety. Being prepared by having the tools, the plans, and the understanding provides a level of protection that maybe your insurance products can support. We are protecting your potential and your business potential. If you wish to find out more about how Right Track can help you prepare to protect your potential, then we invite you to visit our website, www.ritetrack.co.nz, or obtain your free monthly newsletter by registering with bit.ly/RiteTrack. So that's bit.ly/RiteTrack. Or phone me, John Barley, 027-289-3162 or 09-239-3830. Or email me, john.f.for.Freddy.Barley, Barley, @ritetrack.co.nz. Or maybe just have a Zoom call for a half hour to see if we can be of value to your business and your potential. Thank you for your time, and we'll talk again soon. Bye.